frequently talk to my non-audiophile friends about high-end headphones and IEMs, and they don't entirely get it. The $50 TWS they got off Amazon is basically all they need, and AirPods Pro remain the pinnacle of headphone technology. But when I showed them FoKus Prestige, their reaction was a little different. Does Prestige have the total package to appeal to both the audiophile elite and for those of us who aren't so obsessed with sound? What's up, everybody? This is Steve from Bloom Audio. Today we have the Noble FoKus Prestige. Prestige is the latest in Noble's FoKus line, which focuses on sound quality above all else in a TWS. From FoKus Pro to Mystique and now Prestige, each version improved the features, connectivity, the sound, and now with FoKus Prestige, we get this build which, while these cost $600, the build quality on these exceeds stuff you see in headphones and IEMs nearly 10 times the price. But beyond those looks, do the features and the sound justify a $600 price on a TWS? Let's take a closer look. Probably the first thing you're going to notice about Prestige is the looks. Like Noble's high-end, $4,000 plus custom Prestige series IEMs, FoKus Prestige is made from precision CNC milled wood and then finished. So what you're getting is a piece of highly detailed, expertly finished wood, not your typical plastic, aluminum, or other materials that you see in an IEM. Obviously, like in the case and other places, some of those materials are going to be involved as well. But the primary exterior is going to be that wood finish, and it's going to be a completely unique finish on each one. In terms of specs, FoKus Prestige is a hybrid design, still pretty unusual in the TWS space. It uses one 8.2 millimeter dynamic driver and two Knowles balanced armature drivers. The 500 mAh battery gives up to 10 hours of battery life per charge, and then with the case charge, you're going to add basically another 20 hours to that. FoKus Prestige uses Bluetooth 5.2 with SBC, AAC, and aptX support along with aptX Adaptive and HD. There's also an app available for iOS and Android. So Prestige is still largely a sound-focused design. There's not a ton of features here. If you look at something like a Sennheiser Momentum 3 or even some less expensive TWS, you will see a longer list of features in terms of the different noise canceling technologies, transparency, and all of that. Noble has chosen to, again, use that limited real estate to focus on the tuning and the sound, not to throw in those extra features that may appeal to a certain block of users. In terms of using FoKus Mystique, if you've used, just about any TWS before, this is all going to be pretty familiar. There's touch controls which are configurable on each side. So, one tap to pause, fast double tap to skip a track on one side, fast double tap for volume, up on the other side, that sort of thing. And all of that is configurable through the app. The hearing pass-through is also an option that's available through touch. So you can toggle a transparency mode on or off. Then there's the EQ feature, which gives you those standard EQ sliders to create, add a little bass, add a little treble, add some mids, configure that however you like. And also you can take a hearing test, which will then sort of build an EQ for you and maybe tell you a little bit about where you're sensitive and where you're not so sensitive across the frequency spectrum. So of course that EQ leads us right into still the most important part of this experience beyond the features and even the incredible build, and that's the sound. FoKus Prestige does a great job evolving the FoKus series audio performance. Now, from the start, these IEMs haven't taken a lot of big risks with the tuning. It's loosely around a Harman type tuning, some emphasis in the bass that extends into the sub bass, a little cut in the mids, and then some emphasis in the treble that will roll off at the very top end. So in the bass, again, you get a good amount of sub bass extension, a good amount of rubble, a little bit more emphasis in the mid bass, giving you that good impact, physical bass drums, that sort of stuff that people are always looking for. It rolls off nicely into the low mids. There's a touch of warmth to the sound signature, but I think it's pretty transparent and natural overall. In the mid-range, the detail retrieval remains pretty strong, and coming up, vocals are set back just a little bit in the mix, I feel. They're kind of in the middle, not too forward or intimate, not noticeably recessed, just right in the middle of the mix. You go up into the treble, you get a little bit of sizzle, a little bit of air, but there's a smoothness to the treble and generally non-fatiguing upper end with FoKus Prestige. The soundstage is, I would say, moderately sized. It's not huge, it feels realistic. There is a good sense of front to back imaging in that three-dimensionality, and the space feels generally filled out in a sort of cohesive, blended fashion. I find IEMs in general, there's sort of the space between realism and really strongly separated holographic feeling imaging, and this feels more along that sort of cohesive, realistic side. Feels like being a few rows back at a club, you can get a sense of the instrument's placement, but not that sort of exaggerated, heightened feeling of precise positioning for each player. I think one of the most important parts for me of evaluating FoKus Prestige was listening to it next to the previous generation FoKus, which again was very well regarded and great sounding IEM, and that's the FoKus Mystique. The sound signature remains largely unchanged. It just feels like there's small improvements throughout. General sense of space, it's just a little bigger. Imaging, a little bit clearer, a little bit stronger separation, a little more depth to the image. In the tuning, the bass just feels cleaner, where Mystique, I feel like, had a little bit of bloat coming up into the mid-range, which overshadowed some of those mid-range detail. Prestige just cleans it up just enough to keep the warmth, keep the punch and impact, but leave out that bleed and bloat up into the mid-range. It gives you a sense of stronger detail retrieval in the mid-range as well on Prestige. In the treble, again, Mystique, I thought, had just a little bit too smooth, slightly veiled character at time, and Prestige cleans that up again, just giving you a little more clarity and extension in the treble than Mystique had. And I think these are just a number of really small changes that add up to an overall more refined, more detailed sound signature. I think people who were almost there with Mystique are really going to love what they did with Prestige. Hitting at that $600 price point, the closest thing we've reviewed, in terms of price at least, is the HIFIMAN Svanar Wireless. So Svanar Wireless is a similar, very sound performance focused IEM, and they make a good comparison, as there are some strong differences here but also a lot of similarities. Both of these are going for a more natural sound signature. There's not a lot of strong exaggeration anywhere. Svanar feels a little more filled out in the mid-range though, not quite as much bass presence, and Svanar may have a little more extension in the treble as well. So Prestige is going to give you that little bit of extra bass. Svanar feels a little more of a neutral sound signature overall. And Svanar also seems a little more relaxed, even though I just said it had a little more treble. But the overall dynamic presentation in Svanar doesn't quite have the energy and impact of FoKus Prestige. And in terms of the imaging, Svanar hits wider, but doesn't feel as deep as FoKus Prestige to me. And Svanar also has a little bit more of a holographic separation, and so you get a stronger, really clear placement of things, but it's missing a little bit of that, especially when I was listening to some classic jazz tracks. I felt like it felt a little too much separation and not enough blending between the instruments. Where certain genres, you want the stronger separation, you need to emphasize that a little bit, thinking about classical orchestral music, or even, some kind of modern, more technical jazz fusion type bands. But with that classic jazz, I felt like I wanted a little bit more cohesion in the image, a little more blending between instruments than Svanar was giving me. But then again, on some of those more modern tracks, more of a technical focused performance, I liked the stronger separation of Svanar there. In terms of the build and looks and all of that, Svanar lost some points in the general look of it. Even though it was quite comfortable to wear, it is a little bit odd looking in your ear. The case is a little awkward as well. So Prestige is definitely cleaning up in that build and design category. In terms of the features, convenience, all of that, more of the consumer end of things, it's sort of a mixed bag. FoKus Prestige, I think, has just a more generally refined presentation. They've made some big improvements to the app since the launch of the FoKus Pro, giving you a really just solid, easy to use app there that seems to just work, as well as the connectivity. Svanar gives you a few more options, including ANC and LDAC support, but the options didn't seem as well implemented as Prestige's smaller package. So basically, Svanar has more features like the LDAC and the ANC, but it lacks the app, and the implementation of those features can be a little rough sometimes. Overall, between the two, I think there's a lot of parity in the sound, and this is a difference that comes down more to preference. The bigger bass on Mystique, the stronger sense of blending and slightly less holographic image, versus Svanar's, again, more holographic image, a little bit more neutral, less bass emphasis, a little more treble. So the sound is largely going to come down to preference, but that extra $100 for FoKus Prestige gets you definitely more than $100 worth of build quality. So thinking about those conversations I have with my friends about audiophile gear, sometimes it feels like your average, hi-fi setup is sort of like one of those cars you see. They're pretty fast, they're fun to drive, they've got no roof, they've got no trunk, they've got 2 seats. Not very practical, but a lot of fun. In this somewhat tortured analogy, you could say AirPods Pro are kind of like a, 2024 Honda Accord, brand new, shiny, does everything you need it to do without being too flashy about it. FoKus Prestige here comes in more like a Bentley. In the same way that, your average Honda Accord driver isn't going to fully appreciate what a Bentley can do, they're still going to appreciate the incredible craftsmanship, luxury, and everything else that goes into that. And FoKus Prestige is kind of the same. While it comes up just short in the practicality department, FoKus Prestige's sound is among the best out there, and that craftsmanship and build is the absolute best on the market right now. Thanks for watching. You can check out FoKus Prestige and a lot of other great products at bloomaudio.com. Be sure to like and subscribe, and we'll be back soon with more high-fidelity audio content.